Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Pan Future Podcast. Today is Saturday, February 17th, 2018, and I am your host, Sean. Still, as usual, you are stuck with me. Ha ha ha. Anyway, today I have a very cool interview with a NASA engineer to celebrate Engineers Week, which runs this year the 18th through the 24th of February, next week. And before I get to that, instead of some news this week, I just wanted to share a few thoughts on the recent school shooting, the most recent one, since they happen over and over and over. Things like this are always, it's a tragedy in the moment, but it's also, for me, just another sign that we haven't come as far as we think we have. We're not as advanced as we think we are, and we're not living up to the potential that could really lead us into the future and to build a great civilization. You know, if you have dreams of living in a universe like Gene Roddenberry envisioned it, we are not doing the right things to get there. But something is different this time, I think. I cannot recall in the past when this has happened, at least at a school with kids of this age, at a high school, this many of the students who were there being interviewed on television and posting essays on news websites and getting out into social media and starting what appears to be a movement made up of these young people. And maybe that's different this time. I mean, every time this happens, you hope that this will be the last one and something will really change. And it never does. But with the kids who are directly affected by this, maybe this is different. They've realized that the adults are failing them completely. And for whatever part, as an adult, I have in that, I am sorry. But hell yeah, let the kids take charge and let them shout and let them be heard and let them force the change that needs to happen. This could be different. I hope I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that this time something real is actually going to happen. And I am grateful that these young people who have been through such a horrible experience are angered by it in a way that leads them to take action. So, well, moving away from such a heavy topic, let's get to our interview with Holly Griffith, a NASA engineer. And as usual with my interviews, as I always should, Holly is here to speak on her own behalf, and her opinions and viewpoints are her own and not necessarily those of NASA, etc., etc. And we talked a lot about Engineers Week, science communication, women in science, a few heavy topics, and a few lighter topics as well. So, on with the show. All right, everyone, on the show this week, I have an interview with Holly Griffith, an engineer. She is a NASA engineer, former flight controller for Space Shuttle and International Space Station, and currently working on the Orion program in safety on the life support systems. Holly, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So the original reason we connected on Twitter was that you had put out a call for people who wanted to talk about Engineers Week.
Yes.
until I saw your tweet, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yes.
Apparently, it has been for quite a while.
hmm
So, what's it all about?
So Engineering Week or Engineers Week is it was big, and well, the reason I know about it is because not only because I'm an engineer, well, I guess yes, because I'm an engineer, but it's big in colleges, and so we have programs at colleges and universities, and so for E-Week, what we call it, we do projects and things, and so what it's about is it's just celebrating engineers and what engineers do. It's to increase public dialogue about the need for engineers.
Okay.
It's to bring engineering, I guess, more, in focus for kids and educators and their parents. It has been around for a long time, since about 1951, actually. And it's just to, just increase awareness about engineering as a profession, make people aware, that there's a lot of different kinds of engineering. There's anything from like biomedical to, the basic, I guess, the basic four, which would be probably mechanical, electrical, civil, and chemical. But so it's just to make people more aware of engineering as a profession, and it just let them know that, there's a lot of different things you can do if, with becoming an engineer.
So for the people out there who might only know about engineers because of because of Howard Wolowitz being the butt of jokes on Big Bang Theory,
Yeah, right.
let's dispel that myth. And my impression of engineering is that it's basically any practical real world application of pretty much anything falls under the umbrella.
Right. It's kind of a practical application of like science, practical application of, so for instance, I'm a mechanical engineer, so it would be like the practical application of physics.
With your engineering work, I guess to give people a taste of what kind of a variety is there, is out there. Are you working just on computers? Are you working with real world implements? Give us kind of what's a day in the life of a NASA engineer.
Okay, so there's a lot of different kinds of NASA engineers. We do a lot of different things. When I started my career at NASA, so like I said, my degree is in mechanical engineering, but I started out as a flight controller for the space shuttle. And that's more of an operations type job. My system was actually the electrical power system. So I was doing more of an electrical engineering type job. And what we did as flight controllers is, if you've ever seen the movie Apollo 13, which is a great movie, very well made, very realistic, that was actually my system that had the failure. So whenever they say, Houston, we have a problem, we were Houston. And so we sit in front of all the computer screens, and we monitor the data that's coming down from the vehicle. And whenever there's a problem, we're the people on the ground who have to fix it or try to fix it. And so I did that for a while for the space shuttle, for the electrical power system. And then after the space shuttle program ended in 2011, I moved over to the International Space Station, and I was flight controller for the space station. There I was in the maintenance and mechanisms group, so I was doing more mechanical engineering, which, back to my degree. We were kind of the handy persons, so if something broke on the station, we had to basically figure out, okay, what do we have to work with? Because the astronauts couldn't just hop in their little Astro car and go to Home Depot, So we were constrained with what we had to work with.
So that's also, if people want to look at this, I guess you could say that Apollo 13 also has that aspect of it too, because they get together in the room and say, this is what's there.
Yes, exactly. And we have people whose job it is to track every piece of equipment on the space station and try to keep track of exactly where it is. Now, obviously, you can't do that with everything all the time, but for the most part, they know where, a good portion of all the stuff on ISS lives.
Yeah.
So we have a good idea of exactly what we have to work with, and our tools, and we we put our heads together and we come up with a plan and try to fix it. And yeah, because the astronauts, when the toilet breaks, the astronauts are not happy, as you can imagine.
Yeah. Okay. And you're
So
currently working on the
I did
Orion
that,
program.
and then I actually left NASA for a little while, and I came back, and now I'm working on the Orion program, which is the vehicle that's going to replace the space shuttle. It's either going to go to the moon or Mars, or maybe an asteroid, or it's designed to be flexible. So, and depending on when it's finished, and we get direction from the Congress, the president, the administration, we'll know exactly where we're going. But I'm in safety and mission assurance, and so what we do is once the engineers have finished their design, we kind of get everything after the fact, and we look it over, and we think of things like how can things fail? How can it break? And so we go over that and we look at the design from that perspective, and then we kind of will send it back if we think there's problems or there's issues, or did you think about this? Did you think about that? Did you we try to look at it from a how can it break point of view. And if we think that there's a better way to do it, then we'll send it back to engineers and the designers, and just, say, well, what about this? What about that? To make the vehicle as safe as possible for, the astronauts and the crew who are going to ride on it. So we're kind of we're not the most popular people because we're the ones who are like, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do this. No, not safe, not safe. But it's for a good reason. You need those people. And so I'm working on my third system, which is the environmental system, or the ECLA system, the environmental control and life support system. And that's things like consumables like water, nitrogen, oxygen, things that keep the crew alive.
What kind of education goes into having a job like yours? If there's a younger listener out there who wants to be an engineer, what do they do?
So my degree is just basic mechanical engineering. You take a lot of math and physics in high school. And then, of course, once you get to college, you'll have your prerequisites and, classes that you have to take to get your degree. But so whenever I was in high school, we had electives, like calculus was an elective. So I did that. Physics was an elective. So I did that. I just tried to really take all of the math and science courses that I could to make it easier for me whenever I got to college.
And in college, do you start to specialize in aerospace, or is that a master's degree level?
So you can, if you want, you can do aerospace engineering. You don't have to. I thought about it, and a lot of people at NASA do have aerospace engineering degrees. I did not, because I stuck with mechanical, because NASA, being a government agency, it's kind of at the whim of Congress and the administration. So some years we get funded better than others. And sometimes, like at the end of the shuttle program, there were a lot of layoffs. And I was a contractor at that time, and I came very, very close to being laid off. So I did it as kind of a like insurance. I purposely did not get an aerospace engineering degree so that I could go into another industry. It would be easier to go into another industry if I had to, if things got bad at NASA.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the most popular engineering degrees that I've seen at the Johnson Space Center working in human spaceflight have been aerospace, mechanical, and electrical engineering. So those are the ones I see the most.
And in general, do you think if anyone is considering going into engineering, we always need more engineers?
Yes.
There's not an overload of too many people.
No, there's not too many engineers. I don't see that being a problem.
Yeah. You mentioned that you had just finished a SciComm course with NASA. Tell me about that.
So I applied and was selected to do the science communication course. And when people think of engineers, they typically don't think of someone who is a great communicator. And that's a problem because we need people to be able to talk. We need people who do what we do to talk about it and to be able to communicate it with other people who don't know what we do. And because that's how we're going to get their support, and we need public support to keep getting money from Congress. So the science communication course was a way to it wasn't just engineers, it was scientists from all over NASA. So it was from all of the different centers, and we have centers scattered all around the country. Mm-hmm. And it was a way to it was a week long almost. And it trained them. We had things like media training, social media training, and it was just really how to get your message across about what you do and how to tell the important things about what you do to make it interesting to someone who has absolutely no idea about what you do. Okay. And so it's basically like, to them, because they pay us, right? The taxpayers, they pay us. So, it's important for them to understand why we do what we do. And so basically, if they're like, someone who has no clue about our jobs, they're like, why should I care? My tax dollars are going to fund your missions. Why should I care? And so the science communication course was a way of teaching us and giving us the skills to be able to talk to someone who doesn't know on their level, and bringing it down, from not just these giant acronyms that we use all the time at work, and really putting it into more of a story. It was a lot of storytelling, and so that they would understand what we do, and so then they would care, and they wouldn't mind maybe paying taxes and giving us their money. Yeah. Which is not always easy to get someone to do.
I read on your LinkedIn resume that you were a museum guide for a while. It made me wonder if that influenced you as a science communicator, and that maybe everyone going into a science field should have like a museum guide internship for a little while, just to interact with the public at a young age.
I was a museum guide at Space Camp for 2 summers when I interned at the at the University of Alabama in Huntsville with the Marshall Space Flight Center, and another NASA center in Alabama. And that was probably the second most fun job I've ever had, besides being a flight controller. And I think it did teach me a lot, because you just learn so many skills on the go, that you can't pick up through a class. It's just, you just kind of you're just thrown in these situations all the time that there's no manual for, there's no book for, and you just kind of have to go with it. And there's 100 people that need a tour, and you don't have time to go, and there's an issue, you don't have time to go figure out exactly what the perfect thing to do is. You just have to do something now. And so that was a lot of fun. That really was a lot of fun. And you would have kids 7 years old come in. I was young, so I was a cocky 21-year-old. And we had this mom and her son come in, and he was about 7, and she was like, he probably knows more about these rockets than you do. And I'm like, yeah, right. This kid, that kid schooled me on every rocket at that museum. I mean, he knew from top to bottom everything about every rocket. It was amazing to watch this kid just go to town. Yeah. And I just sat back. I was like, wow. And so, Yeah, so you would get the people who were, the space nerds, and they were so into it, and that was fun. And then you would also get the people like whose parents were maybe the space nerds and the kids didn't care, and so you had to try to get them interested, and that was a challenge, and that could be kind of fun. So you had to, it was fun coming up with ways to see what made them tick, and how to get them interested.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that's another thing that really helped me, whenever I do speak to groups, and you do have those people who just, they don't care at all. You have to find out, okay, what button do I push that's going to make them interested in what I have to say?
Yeah. In the current political environment that we are forced to live in, talking about budgets and directions that NASA is expected to go in because Congress can kind of tell it what to do, even though these projects can take decades and you're having to turn around and go some other direction every 4 to 8 years.
Right.
On your Twitter profile, you have a link to a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And I took a look at it, and what stunned me the most is that this is various things which the current administration has done, basically throwing up roadblocks to science. And there's over 1,000 lines in the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
How did you decide to do that? And oh my God, what do we do?
Let me say that I'm speaking on my own behalf. I'm not speaking on behalf of NASA.
Yes.
All opinions are my own. So I don't know if you're familiar with Science March or the March for Science.
Yes,
that happened back in April.
Yeah,
So I went
to the local one here in Eugene. So
okay. I was working with that, and I was like, I don't remember exactly why I started the spreadsheet, but it was for like a March for Science project.
Okay.
Like just to kind of give everyone like a heads up as to, exactly why we were doing what we were doing. And after the March, I just kept it going. And yeah, now it's over 1,000 lines, and I divided up into 3 categories. One is something that the administration, the president or the Congress or the administration has done. Another category is what like people or someone else has done as a response to an administration action, and then another is just like an opinion piece or something like that. So, and yeah, like you said, so it's 1,000 strong. And then I had to kind of start adding another category, which was the actual shutting down of science or scientists. So where they start removing things like climate change or climate science or global warming from the EPA websites, or where the EPA scientists were not allowed to travel for a conference, or where you're not allowed to submit like a report or a like a peer-reviewed article. I think it was an EPA scientist, if it has the words global warming or climate change or climate science in it.
Yeah.
So they're actually censoring the words of the government scientists, and you just look at it, and it's just complete insanity. I mean, it's awful what they're doing. I mean, the shutting down of science, by this administration, of the shutting down of government scientists it's a crime. And I don't know how we recover from this. I mean, I know Stephen Harper, I think it was Stephen Harper in Canada, the prime minister a few years ago, kind of did something similar, and they seem to have come out okay, but
yeah, well, they voted him out of office pretty quickly, it seems.
Right.
So
that's good, but yeah, I don't know how we recover from this. I mean, the EPA, Scott Pruitt has just butchered the EPA, and you don't just, once those people are gone, you don't just get that talent back. Those are career people who have been there for years and been doing research for years. And it's not like, if Trump leaves tomorrow and we get a new president, and we say, come back. It's like, no, their lives have been upended, and maybe they have new jobs now. Maybe they had to move. Maybe they, whatever.
Yeah,
you don't just put it all back together like it was.
Yeah, I think people don't realize with these government agencies, the heads of those agencies may change whenever an administration changes, but the day-to-day people who are doing the science work every day have been there 10, 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah. They've served under, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6, however many presidents. And so that talent is, it's lost. Mm-hmm. And it's going to take a long time to rebuild.
Well, everybody go vote.
Yes.
I guess that's what we can do.
Vote, please, vote.
Yes. And
vote pro-science, please.
Yes,
please,
vote
please,
pro-science.
Please.
And I think people need to be reminded, too, I think the importance of science and the application of science through engineering. If we don't do it here in this country, somebody will do it. The Chinese will do it, the Japanese will do it, the Europeans will do it, and we will get left behind.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Look how many people, and I'll just use NASA as an example, but how many people from, especially older generations, love to brag about, we beat the Russians to the moon, right?
Yeah.
You hear that all the time. And, if you don't have, I don't know what the next great step will be, for the next, the next scientific thing or engineering thing. I don't know what that's going to be, but imagine if we didn't have that to brag about, and you need good engineers, you need good scientists, you need that base to get you there. And so by they don't realize that what they're doing is they're eroding all of that. Mm-hmm. And so whenever the next thing comes around, we're not going to be prepared.
Yeah.
So, whatever it is going to Mars, or I don't know, I'm not going to say, NASA so far, they've kind of they've left us alone so far. Cross my fingers. Maybe I shouldn't say that because I'll go to work tomorrow and get an email like, pack your bags. But yeah, so whether it's medicine or, I don't know. They're just destroying our, science in this country. And so we're just not going to be prepared whenever it is time. And we do need that. We do need those people with that education and that background. So.
Yeah. Even if we're not directly left behind by whatever the next big thing is.
Yeah.
If, as part of doing a podcast about futurism and having hope for the future, I hope that the next big thing is us doing things as humans, not as Americans or Russians or whatever.
Right. But I agree.
If we're unable to participate in being humans, we'll still be left behind.
Yeah, and it's things like, even if it's not going to Mars, it's, you still need scientists for, like I said, just, medicine research. You need doctors, you need civil engineers to build your bridges. You need, we need infrastructure. It's just basic things that people don't think about every day.
Yeah, I forget who said it, but I see the meme online frequently about, nature wants 5 of your 8 children dead, and it wants you dead by 50. Anything more than that is science.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Whether
exactly.
I guess it's important to reinforce we're not just talking about going to space, going to Mars, researching the cosmos. We're talking about bridges and roads and buildings that don't fall down in earthquakes or all that stuff.
Yeah, and and many countries are studying things like global warming, but not all of them have the resources that we are able, or many of them are not able to allocate the amount of resources that we are able to allocate.
Yeah.
So, we have things like the EPA, and we have NASA, and we have NOAA, And with that being gone, it hurts everyone. If we don't do what we're capable of doing, if we stop that research.
Yeah.
So,
well, on to another topic that is at the forefront right now, the Me Too movement and I guess, I don't know if I want to call it the ease or the comfort level that women have felt to come forward with their experiences and say, this happened to me and this is not okay. Mm-hmm. And also sort of combined with getting more women to be involved in science. Mm-hmm. Can you share your experience with that? Were you ever discouraged from being an engineer?
I was discouraged by more, not really my colleagues so much as like my grandfather. So I wanted to be an astronaut, when I was a kid and when I was younger. So I told that to my grandfather, and he was like, "Well, you can't. Women can be teachers or nurses." That was it. We had two options. And then actually after I was an engineer and I was working at NASA, one of my husband's friends of his family was like, well, I'd gotten married, and he was like, well, when are you going to quit your job at NASA to stay home and have kids?
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Never.
Okay. Yeah. And so that happened. I started the SWE, Society of Women Engineers, at my school. And when I was getting it started, I was putting flyers up around the engineering building. And I was one of only two women in my graduating class. It was a small school. And there were, the guys would make comments. They would take the flyers down because that's the mature thing to do. Right. And they would ask questions like, where's the Society of Men Engineers? And it's like, it's every other society,
Yeah.
It's every other group.
It's everywhere already.
Yeah, and they would complain to me like, well, where's my special group? And it's like, well, go make one. Yeah. I don't care. Go put up your own flyers. I'm not stopping you.
Yeah.
And yeah, they would take the flyers down, and just so things like that. Some of the professors, especially the ones from other countries whose maybe their track record on women's and equality wasn't so great, they would just make snide comments here and there. But in terms of being just outright discouraged, it's more little things like that. Mm-hmm. But no, I was never really outright discouraged because I had always had the goal of working for NASA since I was just probably 4 years old. Like, I was like, this is what I'm doing, and I know I'm going to do it, and that's that. And so I just was just so determined that little things like that weren't going to get in my way. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm glad that happened. Recently I've been thinking back to my youth and days in high school and stuff, and I think these roadblocks come up so early in life. I have memories of hearing people talk about whether it was girls in high school saying this themselves or other people, just like you said, your grandfather said, you're a nurse or you're a teacher. There's just an assumption that you're not supposed to do science for
right.
It just sort of bubbles in the background from the time you're born.
You're 100% on target because I do a lot of research looking at that because of I'll go around the country giving talks on women in STEM, and it actually starts around junior high, where there's these like subtle signals that are sent by your parents, your teachers, and other classmates. They don't realize that they're doing it, but it's just little things here and there that, the girls aren't as good as the boys in science. And at around 6th grade is when their confidence starts to go down, and it just turns into, this self-fulfilling prophecy almost of, because you get these signals from everywhere that are very, 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 very subtle, but they're there. and you get enough of them, and then you just kind of start to convince yourself that, oh, this isn't for me. Oh, science isn't for girls.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to look at these careers and not this career. And the research, it's documented and it's published and it's out there. And so it is something that needs to be addressed. Because people talk about it all. Oh, we need to get women in STEM. We need to get women in STEM. Well, having, I don't know, putting out, another booklet or a pamphlet and sending it to schools is not the answer. It's something that parents need to be aware of. It's something that teachers need to be aware of. And it's a much bigger problem to tackle than just, having some video on YouTube and showing it in in biology class or something.
Yeah.
Because it is really a 3-prong approach, I think. And when I graduated in engineering, women were about 20% of engineering grads, and today there's still about 20% of engineering grads. So whatever we've been doing hasn't been working. And so I think we really need to change our tactics there.
Do you think, I would hope that things have been changing, and maybe I guess from an outsider perspective, like the messaging is changing, but like you said, sending out another pamphlet is not working.
Yeah, right. I don't know what they're doing now. Differently in schools and like in high schools or junior high. Personally, I don't know that. I know NASA does a lot, but yeah, we're still about 20%.
Well, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
I guess let that be a message to everyone who listens to this interview. Do more. Encourage young people, and if you hear someone being discouraged, say something, I guess.
Yeah, and it's not anything that they do purposefully. It's just the way that they say things, or just word choices, or little things like that. I don't know. I can send you the link to the study, but it was
I'd like
it was
to see
very
that,
eye-opening. It was very, very eye-opening. At first it starts, like from grades 1 to 5, the girls are right there with the boys.
Yeah.
And then in about 6th grade, they start hearing this messaging. And then in about high school, they've heard the messaging enough that they kind of start just doubting themselves. And so that's when they start telling themselves, well, I'm not good. And so their confidence is down because they've been hearing it from everyone else. So then they start believing it.
Yeah. Send me that link. I would definitely like to put it in the show notes and stuff and make sure everybody sees that.
Yeah.
Let's end on a fun question, since that was a whole lot of serious there for a while. Something I've asked of most of my other guests. Somewhere far in the future, tens of millions of years maybe, humans have left the planet. We're gone. For whatever reason, we're gone. Maybe we went extinct. Maybe we just left. And some other species has risen to take our place. Maybe not technologically advanced, but it has a civilization. So what is your choice for the animal that takes over? This is your Planet of the Apes question. Do you have a favorite candidate for future civilization?
It's cats. It's got to be cats.
So
look at them. We have all of our. They've practically already done it. They own our memes. They own our YouTube videos. They're already preparing for whenever they take over. So, yeah, that's my vote.
So basically, if cats evolve thumbs, we're all doomed.
Yes, that we're done. We're so done. No, they would keep us around because they're too lazy to to feed themselves. But
Yes, there's 3 in my house, and I can tell that they're always plotting my destruction.
exactly. Well, I mean, no, they would want like head rubs and
Yeah.
scratches, and but that's the only reason we would be kept alive.
Okay. So cats it is. All right. Holly, thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
If somebody wants to get in touch with you online or ask you a question or anything, how would they do that?
Okay, so they can find me on Twitter. I'm at Absolute Space Girl.
Okay.
Absolute is spelled like the vodka. It has no E. And then Space Girl. Girl is just GRL, no I, because Twitter wouldn't let me. So I'll spell that out. It's ABSOLUTSPACEGRL. Absolute Space Girl.
Okay. And I will link that in the notes as well, so if people can follow your Twitter, keep up with what you're doing.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much to Holly for joining me this week to talk about engineering and some other very important topics. And as always, thank you, listeners, for spending some time with me. I appreciate it so much. Be sure to go to panfuture.org. You can see some of the links to the research that Holly mentioned and to her Twitter page if you want to keep up on what she's doing, keep up on the spreadsheet of doom. So I hope everybody has a good week. Celebrate Engineers Week. Hug your loved ones. Register to vote. Go vote. And be better tomorrow than you were today. And I will talk to you again in the future.